Here's a truth most people don't want to admit. Strength isn't always welcome. Society rewards those who fit in. It favors the agreeable, the predictable, the ones who make things comfortable. Be friendly, be easy to understand, don't disrupt the flow. That's what people are taught. But then, someone like you comes along, someone who stands tall in their convictions, someone who doesn't seek approval, doesn't follow trends, doesn't soften their presence to fit a mold. And suddenly, everything changes. Some people admire you. They're drawn to your certainty, your unshakable sense of self. But others, they grow uneasy. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you reflect something back at them. Your confidence makes them aware of their own doubts. Your independence highlights their fears. Your clarity disrupts their illusions. And so they call you intimidating. But ask yourself, when did self-assurance become something to fear? When did decisiveness become something to resent? Strength isn't about seeking control over others. It's about refusing to let others control you. And that's what makes you different. Have you ever noticed how people react to you? Have you ever seen respect in some eyes and discomfort in others? If so, you're not alone. Today we'll explore 8 signs that you have a strong, even intimidating personality, and how to embrace it as the asset it truly is. Let's begin. 1. You are decisive and clear. Most people hesitate, they second-guess themselves, overanalyze decisions, and seek endless validation before taking action. But not you. You move with clarity. You trust your instincts. You don't wait for permission, and that alone makes you different. In a world where people stall, a decisive man is unsettling. Your ability to make quick, firm choices without hesitation exposes the uncertainty in others. They see your confidence and wonder why they don't have it. They mistake your clarity for arrogance, your directness for dominance. But the truth? It's not about them. It's about you and your ability to take control of your own life. Think about how most people operate. At work, they delay making tough calls, waiting for group consensus. In relationships, they struggle to commit, afraid of making the wrong choice. Even in daily life, they waste time debating simple decisions: what to eat, what to wear, whether to start that project or not. Indecision drains them. It steals their momentum, their power. But you don't allow hesitation to rule your life. Decisiveness is a rare trait. It's a mark of inner strength. And it's no surprise that those who lack it often feel uncomfortable around those who do. Your ability to make decisions quickly and without regret challenges their mindset. It forces them to confront their own weakness, their tendency to hesitate, to wait for someone else to make the call. You don't suffer from that burden. You act, and you own your actions. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That is the essence of decisiveness. Stop debating, stop overanalyzing, stop waiting for someone to tell you what to do. Just act. And if you make a mistake, you adjust. That's how leaders move forward. That's how a man who truly controls himself operates. Here's the reality. Indecision is a decision. Every time you hesitate, you're still making a choice to do nothing. And that is the most costly decision of all. Think of the opportunities lost because someone hesitated. The job offer that slipped away because they took too long to decide. The business deal that went to someone else because they didn't act fast enough. The relationship that faded because they were too afraid to commit. Regret weighs far more than failure. Imagine 2 men in a negotiation. The first man hesitates. He over-explains, afraid to offend. He asks for more time, worried about making the wrong choice. The room senses his doubt. He's already lost control. The second man? He listens, considers, and delivers a firm response. "This is my offer. Take it or leave it." Silence. The air shifts. The other party realizes they're dealing with someone who knows his value, someone who isn't afraid to walk away. That is power. Not because he was aggressive, not because he was manipulative, but because he was decisive. This is why decisive people command respect. They don't waste time proving themselves. Their actions speak louder than their words. When a decisive man makes a choice, the world adjusts. And those who hesitate are left wondering why they can't operate at the same level. But let's be clear. Decisiveness doesn't mean recklessness. It's not about rushing into choices blindly. It's about trusting yourself enough to make the best decision based on the information available and having the confidence to deal with the outcome, whatever it may be. The Stoics taught this well. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most people are paralyzed by what-ifs. What if they fail? What if they make the wrong move? What if they regret their choice? You don't waste energy on those thoughts. You understand that every decision carries a risk. But not making a decision, that's the greatest risk of all. So how do you cultivate this level of decisiveness? First, stop seeking validation. You don't need approval to act. If it aligns with logic, your principles, and your goals, make the call. Second, train yourself to make quicker choices in small matters. The next time someone asks where you want to eat, decide immediately. The more you practice quick, confident decisions in the small things, the easier it becomes in the big things. Third, trust your gut. Your mind may hesitate, but your instincts already know. Listen to them. A decisive man is rare. That's why he stands out. That's why he commands respect. And that's why he intimidates those who live in hesitation. You don't ask for permission. You don't beg for approval. You make decisions, you own them, and you keep moving forward. That is the essence of true strength. That is what makes you different. 2. You can handle difficult conversations. Most people avoid confrontation. They dodge difficult conversations, afraid of tension, rejection, or making someone uncomfortable. They choose silence over truth, hoping problems will disappear if they ignore them long enough. But they don't. Problems grow, resentment builds, and opportunities to set things right slip away. You face things head on. You don't sugarcoat, you don't evade. If something needs to be said, you say it. Not out of anger, not to win an argument, but because truth matters. And that alone makes you different. I have a friend, Mark. Smart guy, hardworking, but he had one weakness. He avoided confrontation at all costs. He'd rather take on extra work than tell his boss that the workload was unfair. He'd rather let friends walk over him than risk a disagreement. He'd rather pretend everything was fine in his relationship than address the growing distance between him and his wife. Every time a difficult conversation came up, he backed down. He let discomfort control him. One day, his boss handed him yet another last-minute project. Mark had already been working late nights, missing time with his family. He was exhausted, but instead of speaking up, he swallowed his frustration. Again, that night over dinner, his wife told him something that hit hard. You stand up for everyone at work, but never for yourself. I don't think you even know how. That was the moment, the breaking point. The next morning, Mark did something different. When his boss piled on another task, he held his ground. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make excuses. He simply said, "I already have too much on my plate. I can't take this on without sacrificing the quality of my work. We need to reassess priorities." His boss was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "All right, let's figure it out." That was it. No argument, no fight, just clarity and control. And the funny thing, his boss respected him more for it because people respect those who respect themselves. Most men think standing up for themselves means being aggressive. It doesn't. True strength is calm, composed. It doesn't seek to dominate, it simply refuses to be dominated. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the foundation of handling difficult conversations. You don't need to attack, but you also don't need to shrink. Think about the last time someone disrespected you. Did you let it slide? Did you tell yourself it wasn't worth the hassle? Or did you speak up? Because here's the truth. Silence isn't always wisdom. Sometimes silence is surrender. A strong man doesn't let fear dictate his voice. He understands that unspoken resentment is poison, in relationships, in business, in life. The moment you start avoiding hard conversations, you start compromising your own boundaries. And boundaries aren't just about saying no. They're about defining what you will and won't tolerate. Handling tough conversations isn't about winning. It's about clarity. It's about ensuring that your voice is heard and your stance is understood. It's about knowing that your truth matters as much as anyone else's. Here's how you do it. First, control your emotions. Most people either explode or shut down. Neither works. The Stoics taught that true power lies in responding, not reacting. Before you speak, pause. Center yourself. Make sure your words come from strength, not frustration. Second, get to the point. Weak men over-explain. They justify. They apologize before they even start. Don't. Say what needs to be said, clearly, directly, without apology. Third, stay firm but respectful. Some people will push back. Some will try to manipulate you into backing down. Stand your ground. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be understood. And lastly, let silence do the work. Speak your piece, then stop. Weakness fills silence with nervous rambling. Strength lets silence hang. A strong man doesn't seek out conflict, but when it comes to him, he doesn't run. He doesn't avoid, evade, or shrink. He looks it in the eye, speaks with purpose, and stands by his words. Because at the end of the day, it's not about making people comfortable. It's about making yourself undeniably clear. And that is what makes you different. 3. You rise after every failure. Failure breaks most people. They see it as an ending, a judgment on their worth. When they fail, they collapse. They let it define them. They tell themselves, maybe I wasn't meant to succeed, and so they stop trying. They lower their expectations. They shrink their ambition. But not you. When you fall, you rise. Every time. Not because it's easy, not because you enjoy it, but because you don't know how to stay down. It's not in your nature. You have built yourself to withstand failure. You have conditioned yourself to see setbacks not as defeat, but as fuel. I don't know if I was born strong, but I do know this. When I was a child, my father taught me something that shaped my entire life. When I fell, he didn't rush to pick me up. He didn't panic. He stood there and watched, waiting. And then he said something simple: get up. No sympathy, no outstretched hand, just 2 words. And so I did, again and again, until getting up became second nature. Until I no longer looked around for help. Until I understood deep in my bones that no one was coming to save me, that I had to save myself. That lesson followed me into adulthood. The first time I lost a job, the first time I was betrayed, the first time life hit me so hard that it would have been easier to stay down. But staying down was never an option, because by then rising wasn't a choice, it was instinct. Most people don't have that instinct. They crumble at the first sign of struggle. They fall apart when life doesn't go as planned. They let failure define them instead of using it as fuel. They spend their days blaming circumstances, bad luck, other people, anything but themselves. But you don't have that luxury. You don't waste time complaining. You don't wait for someone to fix things for you. You don't ask, why me? You ask, what now? That's the difference between those who survive and those who thrive. The ones who rise are the ones who refuse to be beaten. They understand something most people don't. Failure is part of the process. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The Stoics understood that obstacles aren't roadblocks. They are the path itself. Every failure, every hardship, every setback, it all serves one purpose: to make you stronger. If you let it. Some people will never understand this. They will say you are cold, unfeeling, that you should complain more, that you should let yourself be weak. But weakness never built anything. It never won battles, it never created leaders, and it certainly never earned respect. The truth is, failure is a test of character, of discipline, of endurance. It reveals who has the strength to adapt and overcome, and who will break under pressure. Think of a man who has lost everything. His business fails, his relationship falls apart, his friends disappear. Most would collapse under the weight of it. They'd turn to self-pity, drowning in excuses and regret. But the strong man? He doesn't waste time asking what went wrong. He takes a breath, squares his shoulders, and starts building again. It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. But the ability to rise after every fall is the only thing that separates those who make it from those who don't. I've seen it firsthand. I've lived it. And maybe you have too. Maybe you've been through something that should have broken you. Maybe you've had moments where everything fell apart, where the easiest thing to do was to stay down. But you didn't. You got back up. And that's why you can't be defeated. Not truly, not permanently. Because you've already faced failure and it didn't destroy you. It made you sharper, tougher, unshakable. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous. Because a man who refuses to stay down is a man who can't be stopped. But let's take it deeper. Let's talk about what really separates the strong from the weak. Weak men see failure as proof that they should quit. Strong men see failure as a challenge, an invitation to come back stronger. Weak men complain that life is unfair. Strong men accept reality and move forward anyway. Weak men wait for someone to pick them up. Strong men stand up on their own. This is the mindset that determines everything. It's what makes one man unstoppable and another man invisible. If you want to develop this kind of resilience, start now. Stop avoiding hardship. Stop looking for the easy way out. If something knocks you down, stand up immediately. Don't linger. Don't sit there questioning why it happened. Just rise. And when life knocks you down again, rise faster. Because every time you get back up, you train yourself. You build something inside you that no one can take away. And one day, after you've risen enough times, something incredible happens. You realize that failure doesn't scare you anymore. You realize that nothing can keep you down. And at that point, you become truly powerful. Not because you never fall, but because you always rise. 4. You don't seek approval. You know your worth. Most people live for approval. They shape their words, their actions, even their thoughts around what others might think. They hesitate before speaking, scanning the room for signs of agreement. They dress, behave, and make decisions not based on what they believe, but on what will be accepted. And worst of all, they measure their worth through the reactions of others. You don't. You don't wait for a nod of approval before taking action. You don't seek permission to exist as you are. You don't care whether the world claps for you or turns its back. Your value isn't dictated by likes, applause, or recognition. It's dictated by you. This makes you rare, and it makes you powerful. Because when a man no longer seeks validation, he becomes untouchable. Think about how most people operate. They agree with opinions they don't believe in just to avoid conflict. They laugh at jokes that aren't funny to fit in. They stay in situations that drain them because leaving would mean disappointing someone. They post on social media, waiting, needing the rush of approval, the proof that they matter. They need someone else to confirm their worth. But here's the truth. If you need others to tell you that you're valuable, you will always be at their mercy. One compliment makes you feel like a king. One insult makes you feel like a failure. One rejection is enough to shake your confidence. One moment of disapproval, and suddenly you start questioning yourself. That is weakness. True confidence isn't built on approval. It's built on unshakable self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." He understood that most people worship external validation while ignoring the one voice that actually matters, their own. Think about it. How much time have you wasted worrying about what others think? How many decisions have you delayed because you were afraid of judgment? How often have you looked in the mirror and changed something not because you wanted to, but because you thought it would make you more acceptable? This is a prison, and most people live in it their entire lives. But you refuse to be caged by opinions. You don't adjust yourself to make others comfortable. You don't lower your voice so others feel louder. You don't pretend to be someone you're not, just to blend in. That intimidates people. They can't understand how you move through life without needing validation. They mistake your self-sufficiency for arrogance. They see your confidence and call it defiance. But their judgment doesn't affect you, because you know who you are. A man who knows his worth doesn't beg for recognition. He doesn't shrink when others disapprove. He doesn't bend to please, and he never apologizes for existing. But let's be clear, not seeking approval doesn't mean rejecting all feedback. It means filtering it. It means knowing which voices matter and which don't. A weak man listens to every opinion and lets them shape him. A strong man listens selectively. He takes wisdom where it's offered but ignores noise. Seneca wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, if you seek to grow, be prepared to be misunderstood. Be ready to face disapproval. The masses will always attack what they don't understand. When you stop needing approval, everything changes. You stop wasting time explaining yourself. You stop justifying your choices. You stop asking for permission to take up space in the world. You move forward without hesitation. You speak without worrying if people will agree. You act without waiting for applause, and because of that, you become impossible to control. No one can guilt you into decisions. No one can manipulate you through fear of rejection. No one can dictate how you live. Most people will never know this kind of power. They are too dependent on external validation, too addicted to approval, too afraid to stand alone. They would rather be accepted than be free. They would rather be liked than be respected. They would rather be part of the crowd than be the man who doesn't need one. But you walk your own path. You know your worth, and that makes you unstoppable. 5. You have an unshakable moral code. Most people bend. They adjust their values depending on who they're with, what's convenient, or what brings them the least resistance. They compromise their integrity for approval, for comfort, for temporary gain. They say what people want to hear, do what keeps them safe, and justify small betrayals of their own conscience. But not you. You have a moral code that does not shift with the wind. You have principles that do not dissolve under pressure. When you decide what is right, you stand by it, whether it's easy or not, whether it makes you popular or not. And that makes you rare. Because in a world where people are quick to sell out, the man who refuses to bend is a threat. His presence alone is a reminder of what others lack. When you walk into a room, people sense it. They know that you're not easily swayed, that your values are not up for negotiation. Some will respect you for it, others will resent you, but none will be able to ignore you. I have a rule. I do not betray my word. If I say I will do something, I do it. No excuses, no exceptions. That rule has cost me opportunities. It has made people uncomfortable. It has even ended friendships, but I do not regret it. Because at the end of the day, I can look in the mirror and know exactly who I am. Most people cannot say the same. Think about how many people change their stance when the pressure is on. How many say they believe in something until it becomes inconvenient? How many talk about loyalty but fold the moment things get tough? They justify their actions, telling themselves, it's just this once. But once is all it takes. Once you cross a line, once you betray your principles, the next time becomes easier. And soon, you're just like the rest. Another man with no backbone, no conviction, no real identity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter. That is the core of an unshakable moral code. It is not about what others think. It is not about what is easy. It is about knowing what is right and doing it. No compromises, no apologies. This is why a strong moral code is intimidating, because it cannot be controlled. When a man lives by his own set of principles, he cannot be bribed, manipulated, or coerced. He does not trade his integrity for convenience, and that makes him dangerous to those who do. Imagine a workplace where everyone plays along with corruption. They look the other way. They do what they're told. They don't ask questions. And then you show up. You refuse to fake numbers. You refuse to flatter the boss just to get ahead. You refuse to participate in the games everyone else plays. Some will admire you, others will hate you, but no one will be able to ignore you. Or think about friendships. How many times have you seen people tolerate disrespect just to avoid conflict? How many times have you seen someone allow themselves to be used because they were too afraid to walk away? A man with an unshakable moral code does not tolerate disrespect. He does not entertain dishonesty. He does not surround himself with people who lack integrity. And yes, that means sometimes standing alone. Most people will never understand this. They are too accustomed to bending, to shifting their values when it benefits them. They cannot comprehend the kind of man who stands firm, who does not betray himself, who refuses to be shaped by outside pressure. But you live by a different standard. You know that a man without principles is nothing. That integrity is not a convenience, it is the foundation of strength. That the moment you compromise on what matters, you lose more than just a battle. You lose yourself, so you do not bend, you do not justify, you do not betray your own standards for the sake of ease. Because at the end of the day, respect is not given to those who follow the crowd. It is given to those who stand firm in the storm. You don't follow the crowd. Most people don't think. They react. They follow. They conform. They shape their opinions, their actions, even their beliefs based on what the majority is doing. They assume that if everyone else agrees, it must be right. If society praises something, it must be good. If the crowd moves in one direction, they should follow. But not you. You don't move with the herd. You don't silence your thoughts just because they're different. You don't surrender your judgment for the comfort of fitting in. While others are looking around for approval, you are thinking for yourself. And that makes you unpredictable. That makes you dangerous. Because the world is designed to keep people in line. It rewards obedience. It punishes those who dare to question, to challenge, to think. The moment you stop following blindly, you become an outsider. People feel uncomfortable around you. They wonder why you aren't agreeing, why you aren't nodding along, why you aren't seeking their approval. Some will admire it, others will resent it, but none will be able to control you. Most people don't realize how much of their thinking isn't their own. They absorb the opinions around them without questioning. They repeat what they've been told without understanding. They believe something, not because they have tested it, but because it was given to them. And that is why they fear those who think for themselves. A man who questions is a man who cannot be manipulated. A man who thinks for himself is a man who will not be let off a cliff simply because the rest are marching in that direction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." He understood that just because a belief is widely accepted does not make it correct. The crowd is not a measure of truth. Popularity is not a measure of wisdom. The Stoics knew this, and so do you. But thinking for yourself comes at a cost. You will not always be liked. You will not always be understood. People will question why you don't conform, why you don't go along with things, why you don't just do what is expected. Some will mistake your independence for arrogance. Others will see it as defiance. And some will even try to pull you back in, to pressure you into aligning with them, to make you feel guilty for standing apart. That is the test, and most people fail it. They give in. They tell themselves it's easier to just agree, to just follow, to just keep quiet. They betray their own judgment for the comfort of blending in. They trade their independence for approval. And the moment they do, they become just another face in the crowd. But you hold your ground. You question. You analyze. You refuse to accept something just because it's what everyone else is doing. You choose your own path, even if it means walking alone. You trust your mind, your logic, your principles, more than you trust the shifting opinions of the masses. And that makes you unbreakable. Because a man who thinks for himself cannot be controlled. He cannot be forced into a mold. He cannot be herded into mediocrity. He moves with purpose, not because others told him to, but because he decided to. Most people will never know this kind of freedom. They are too dependent on external validation, too afraid to stand alone, too unwilling to challenge what they've been told. But you live by a different standard. You move differently. And that is why you stand out. You don't seek comfort in numbers. You don't let the weight of the crowd pull you down. You see things for what they are, not for what you're told they should be. You make decisions with clarity, not based on fear, not based on pressure, but based on reason. And that kind of independence unsettles people. It forces them to ask questions they don't want to answer. It forces them to acknowledge how much of their own thinking is borrowed, how much of their own life is dictated by external expectations. And when they realize that they have spent years, maybe decades, following without questioning, they either wake up or they turn against you. They either begin to think for themselves or they resent you for showing them what they lack. But none of that is your concern. You are not responsible for their awakening. You are not here to convince anyone to think differently. You are here to live according to your own mind, your own standards, your own truth. And that is why you intimidate people. Because your mind is your own. Because you see through the illusions. Because you do not fall in line. Because you know that just because the crowd is moving, it doesn't mean they're going in the right direction. And when you live this way, you become untouchable. Because nothing sways you. Nothing pressures you. Nothing forces you to abandon what you know to be true. And that is what makes you powerful. That is what makes you different. That is what makes you free. 7. You are comfortable being alone. Most people fear being alone. They fill every silence with noise. They seek distractions, validation, company, anything to avoid facing themselves. They believe solitude is a punishment, a sign that something is missing. But not you. You are different. You are comfortable in your own presence. You don't need constant engagement, mindless conversations, or forced interactions to feel whole. You move through life with the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from truly knowing yourself. You are not lonely when alone. You are at peace. I know this feeling well. I enjoy solitude. I prefer working in silence, where I can focus without distraction. I don't mind spending hours reading, walking, or simply sitting in thought. Music, a good book, the sound of the wind, I don't need more than that. Because in solitude, I find clarity. I find strength. I find myself. Most people will never understand this. They associate solitude with emptiness. They believe being alone means being unwanted, rejected, forgotten. They fear the quiet because in the quiet they must face their own thoughts. And that terrifies them. That is why they seek constant stimulation. Why they surround themselves with people who drain them. Why they engage in endless distractions just to avoid a moment of stillness. But a strong mind sees solitude differently. A strong mind understands that being alone is not the absence of company. It is the presence of self. It is where true power is cultivated, where self-awareness is sharpened, where independence is reinforced. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." The Stoics understood that solitude is not something to escape, it is something to embrace. It is in solitude that you develop resilience, because you learn to rely on yourself. It is in solitude that you find your own voice, because you are not drowned out by the noise of the world. It is in solitude that you cultivate strength, because you are no longer dependent on external validation. Most people avoid being alone because they have never built a strong enough foundation within themselves. They define themselves by their relationships, their social circles, their status in the eyes of others. They measure their worth by how many people want to be around them, by how much attention they receive. But a man who is truly comfortable in his own skin does not seek fulfillment from outside sources. He does not need an audience to feel valued. He does not need approval to feel at ease. He does not fear his own company. There is power in being able to sit in silence without feeling the need to escape. There is power in walking into a restaurant alone and eating with confidence. There is power in traveling alone, in thinking alone, in making decisions without asking for permission or reassurance. The man who has mastered solitude has mastered himself. But solitude does not mean isolation. It does not mean rejecting others or avoiding relationships. It means choosing company wisely. It means refusing to surround yourself with people just for the sake of not being alone. It means valuing your own time, energy, and presence enough to protect it from unnecessary distractions. Most people will never reach this level of self-sufficiency. They will continue to chase social validation. They will continue to fill their days with shallow interactions. They will continue to run from their own thoughts. And they will never understand the strength of the man who does not fear solitude. You are different. You do not seek meaningless connections. You do not fear the quiet. You do not lose yourself in the crowd because you have already found yourself in the silence. That is why you stand apart. That is why you intimidate people, because they see in you what they lack: true independence. And a man who is whole on his own cannot be controlled. He cannot be manipulated through loneliness. He cannot be pressured into chasing approval. He is free, and freedom? That is the ultimate power. 8. You stand out. Some people blend in. They move through life unnoticed, never making waves, never demanding attention. They follow the crowd, speak in agreeable tones, and avoid standing out. They are comfortable in the background. They fear being seen because being seen means being judged. It means being misunderstood. It means facing resistance. But that has never been your concern. You stand out, not because you try to, not because you seek attention, but because who you are is impossible to ignore. Your presence shifts the energy in a room. Your words carry weight. Your actions set a higher standard, and that makes people uneasy. Not everyone will celebrate strength. Some will admire you, some will resent you, and some will fear you. I've seen it firsthand. My older brother was one of those men who never tried to impress anyone, yet people always paid attention when he spoke. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his words were sharp, deliberate. He didn't follow trends, didn't chase approval, didn't care whether people liked him or not. And that made people respect him, even those who disliked him. I remember walking into a family gathering with him. The moment he entered, the energy shifted. People became more careful with their words. Conversations quieted for a moment. Some greeted him warmly. Others kept their distance. He didn't do anything to demand attention. He simply carried himself in a way that made it clear he wasn't interested in playing social games. He had nothing to prove, and that unsettled people. That's what happens when you stand out. People who lack confidence will see your presence as a challenge. People who rely on approval will be uncomfortable around someone who doesn't seek it. People who play mind games will avoid you because they know you won't engage. The weak will label you arrogant. The insecure will call you cold. The envious will try to find reasons to bring you down. But none of it matters, because you are not here to make people comfortable. You are not here to fit in. You are not here to lower yourself so others can feel taller. You are here to be exactly who you are, without apology, without hesitation, without permission. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." The moment you stop caring about how people perceive you, you become unstoppable. You move with clarity, unshaken by gossip, unfazed by criticism. You don't adjust yourself to blend in. You let others adjust to your presence. But standing out comes with resistance. The world is built for conformity. It rewards those who obey. It punishes those who challenge the norm. It tries to break anyone who refuses to shrink. But you are not here to be broken. You are here to rise above. Some people will fear you, not because you are cruel, not because you are dangerous, but because you remind them of what they lack. You remind them of the courage they don't have, the discipline they abandoned, the potential they wasted. You force them to confront their own mediocrity, and that makes them uncomfortable. That is not your burden to carry. You do not exist to reassure others. You do not exist to make people feel safe in their limitations. You do not exist to be smaller so others can feel bigger. You exist to be the fullest version of yourself. If that intimidates people, let it. If that makes them uneasy, so be it. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is this. When you look in the mirror, do you respect the person staring back at you? If the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you need to be. No approval needed, no permission required. You stand out, not because you seek attention, not because you try to be different, but because who you are cannot be ignored, and that is what makes you powerful. Strength is not about forcing others to acknowledge you. It is not about proving yourself, seeking recognition, or demanding respect. True strength comes from within. It is the ability to walk through life with confidence, unshaken by opinions, independent in thought, firm in values, and unafraid of solitude. It is standing tall even when others try to tear you down. It is knowing your worth without seeking validation. It is choosing integrity over convenience, discipline over comfort, and self-mastery over approval. These are not just traits, they are skills. They are habits that must be cultivated, trained, and reinforced through action. Every day you have a choice. You can follow the crowd, or you can trust your own judgment. You can bend to pressure, or you can stand by your principles. You can seek validation, or you can live by your own standards. The world will always try to shape you, but in the end, the only person responsible for who you become is you. So ask yourself, where do you need to strengthen your resolve? Which lesson do you need to apply? What is holding you back from fully stepping into your power? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let this be a space where we push each other forward. Because in the end, those who seek growth will always rise above. And those who rise, they cannot be stopped.